Hello, everyone, and welcome to Truth Tuesday on Inner Power Training. I'm Rebecca Tripp, and I'm going to share with you today some recent political changes that have been happening in the country, the United States of America. And as an apolitical person um, who likes to just check everything out, I'm into people. I like to use my intuition to tell me who's good and who's not so good. I learned how to do that as a crew member. You get very insightful when it comes to people after you've had close contact with many of them after a while. There are a lot of intuitives out there that can pick up on people's energy. But it's essential for us to stay informed and understand how these shifts are impacting our lives. But I think there's going to be some big changes on planet Earth. I do believe we're in the midst of the Great Awakening, the shift that all the prophets, mystics, indigenous people from way back when have written about. It's just that we're living in these times, and it's very, very exciting. But some of the recent political developments that have really rocked people are the president's actions in his initial days back in office. We're talking about President Trump. He has withdrawn the United States from the Paris Climate Accord and the World Health Organization. He reinstated strict immigration policies that we haven't had for years and eliminated federal diversity programs. And these actions have all sparked considerable debate across the nation. People have very strong opinions and get very polarized when it comes to these things. So, the thing about energy policies is that President Trump declared an energy energy emergency. So he's aiming to boost the oil and gas production while this moves us to become more strengthened with energy independence. I know I live right near the coast of Massachusetts, where they've been building these windmills out at sea, and it's very controversial because all of a sudden we have a lot of sea life, whales and seals and dolphins are washing up on shore, which had never happened before. But there's a lot of criticism for these energy ideas because people have strong opinions when it comes to these issues. Social policies, an executive order was issued recognizing two sexes, male and female, which is affecting a lot of things like passports, access to single sex spaces. And this decision has been met with both support and opposition, once again, reflecting the nation's very diverse perspectives on gender identity. And these are just a few examples of all the changes that have underway. There's going to be a ton more, I'm sure. So fasten your seatbelts. It's going to get rocky, very rocky. So, how do you deal with this? We're going to consider how these policies can align with our values and beliefs if we use spiritual strategies for navigating. First of all, when there are political shifts, they can often lead to feelings of uncertainty. Nobody likes change. People get really nervous and insecure many times when there is change. I'll give you an example. I was telling someone today, we used to have briefings on the airplane. Was a former flight attendant. And, there'd be a dozen of us or even more sitting around getting ready to go on a 747 to fly to Hong Kong or Seoul, Korea, across the Pacific Ocean and way off into Asia, long flights. Many times the flight attendants would just start, getting real cranky and bitchy and nasty. And they would do it quite frequently in this briefing rather than talking in an uplifting way. They'd get very, very nasty. And one day I figured it out. I said, oh, it's because, I mean, I just kind of observed it. I didn't like to get into it, but I noticed it was because they were leaving the ground. They were leaving their life behind as they knew it on the ground and going into basically uncertainty. When you take off on a jet, it's a little uncertain up there. You have to be ready for a lot of different things. And it would make them uncomfortable in a way. Not that they weren't good at their jobs, but it was just a way for them to release that negative energy that had been building up maybe a little bit before a trip. And people do that. They get real cranky and real nasty when it comes to trying to talk about changes. They don't like change. But you have to stay informed and not overwhelmed. If you just keep yourself informed of what's going on, you can avoid becoming consumed by the news. You don't need to be consumed. Another thing that happened to me years ago after my spiritual awakening, I was watching the news one night and I could see almost like how the news announcers, the talking heads, were puppets, just giving us their information that they were being told to give. I got hired one day by a news station and I said to the man that hired me, I'm not a journalist. I don't really write stories about the news. He said, you don't have to. You just need to read a teleprompter. So, that was what I think I glimpsed when I had this insight into how it's not like these people that you're listening to on the news really believe everything they're saying. They're just reading what they're being told to read. So you got to get over it. But they're very believable because they're very good at it. The more you can deliver a message in the present tense and be convincing, the more people are going to believe what you're saying. That's how it works. I've studied acting with Stella Adler in New York. And, when you're in the present and you're delivering a message, it's much more effective. But you also need to practice mindfulness. That means engaging in activities that bring you into the present moment, like meditation. Meditation is very important, going within. I've taught thousands of people how to use active meditation, lowered their brain waves down to the alpha level by relaxing their bodies and relaxing their minds and going within. That's where your inner power is. And when you pray, when you're at that level of consciousness and you spend time in nature, it helps to reduce your anxiety about the future and keeps you centered. When you're living in the now, you don't worry about the future anymore. You're just in the present. And when you're in the present, the future hasn't started yet. It's always coming because time doesn't stand still. But dwelling on your past and your regrets about the past or being fearful of your future gets you nowhere. You need to learn to just live in the moment and connect with like-minded individuals. That's what got me through this whole lockdown thing that we just did for 4 years or 3 years or whatever it was. Seemed like forever, but I connected on Zoom with like-minded people. And I got really into doing my YouTube channel, which was interesting and creative. Always good to have creative things that you can tap into in order to feel fulfilled. Creativity is one of the greatest things you can do for yourself. And you're all creative. You just need to figure out what you enjoy doing with it. But having a support system can provide comfort and a perspective during times of change. Very, very important to have people that you can talk to. And you need to reflect on your poor core beliefs. You can use this time to delve deeper into your spiritual beliefs through journaling and reading sacred texts. I love to read and study all the mystics. I've learned so much from so many of them, but they're all saying the same thing. Love your neighbor as yourself. Be selfless. Don't be selfish all the time. The more selfless you are, the more help you're going to get from the other side. And center yourself. Learn that you do have a connection to your higher self and the divine. And when you pray and expect to get answers, you will. You will. That's how it works. You have so much more power than you can even imagine. But journaling or reading sacred texts can offer you guidance and reinforce your faith. There was a time in my life where I used to get up at 3 o'clock every morning and go journal downstairs in my house. And I got so much clarity on where I was going, and it was almost like a reboot. I needed to do this in order to get a sense of what I was supposed to be doing next in my life because there's always a next thing. You don't just retire and hang it up. You always have something that you can do. So take positive action. If certain policies or events are concerning to you, consider how you can contribute positively. There's always something you can do. You might want to get involved in your community or simply being a source of support for others, be a listener, someone people can talk to. They like that. And remember that while the external circumstances can change, your inner strength and faith remains constant. Boy, did I learn this after 9/11. I was a Boston-based United Airlines flight attendant, number one. During 9/11, I bid Flight 175, which hit the tower, and then I changed my bid at the last minute in the computer. But I flew to Los Angeles just a couple of days after I got home from 9/11. Took 4 days to get home. And, because the airports were closed, the Boston airport was a crime scene. But when I flew back to Los Angeles that Sunday, I was the purser. And I felt like I needed eyes in the back of my head. We didn't trust anybody. We didn't know what was next. But in the middle of my being, I felt this column of peace, like the eye of a storm. It was amazing. It really fascinated me how this feeling came over me that I'd never really had before when I was in that kind of circumstance. I was on like a 5-hour flight, and this peace, that passive understanding, actually, that was like the center of my being, never left me the whole time. So I wasn't really fearful. I was on high alert, but I wasn't fearful. And during these times of political change, it is essential to ensure that our actions reflect our core values. So here are some steps that you can take to align your daily life with your beliefs. Take time to evaluate what's really important to you. I mean, do you want to get along with your fellow human beings, or do you want to argue all the time? Do you want to isolate yourself? What is important? This clarity will guide your decisions and your actions when you figure out what is really important that makes you happy, that allows you to function in this three-dimensional world in a very harmonious way. So set your intentions. Begin each day with a clear intention that aligns with your values. And it could be as simple as committing to being kind or seeking opportunities to serve others. Like, I make it a point when I go to the grocery store or anywhere to have a little conversation with the people that work there and say something uplifting, because I know what it's like to be on a long flight and be bored out of your mind sometimes. It's always nice to have a positive, uplifting conversation with a fellow human being. It doesn't have to be polarizing. It can just be pleasant. Engage in communities, participation groups. If you're into that, you can always find organizations and groups of people that reinforce your values. It's always good to be on the lookout for those kinds of things. And you can educate yourself and stay informed about issues and matters. Just don't jump to conclusions sometimes. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes many, many times. That's one thing I learned as a world traveler. The world is very complex. These leaders are very complex. Many of their issues are not what we think they are. And we need to look below the surface many times. I'll never forget when I first started flying and I found out there was a UFO cover-up. That was one of my big reasons for becoming a stewardess. I'd seen 3 UFOs up close, and I wanted to find out where they were coming from. And the pilots quickly informed me that they weren't really allowed to talk about them or, call them in if they saw one. They could lose their job. So that was my big first aha moment when I first started flying. I found out there's a lot of secrets out there. So we don't necessarily know them all. But when you advocate, you can do it respectfully. You don't have to be obnoxious because nobody wants to talk to you if you're really, difficult. And we all have differing opinions about certain things, but when we consciously align our actions with our values, we can contribute more harmoniously and purposefully to life. That's why I love metaphysics. When you go to that higher realm and you just stay neutral or project positive thoughts and energy toward the experiences you're having in your life, they will be transformed. I've seen people, you know, on the airplane in my personal life change like that when I changed my attitude about them. So I invite you to come back to Truth Tuesday when I'm here again. And I plan to do this every week as I navigate through different things that are happening in the world and whatever. We can all work together to bring more peace and harmony and bring in the new age, which is everybody's talking about, the new shifting consciousness. We're all going to be living at a different level of consciousness. If you've ever had a glimpse of it, you know what I'm talking about. Go to my website, RebeccaTripp.com, because I encourage you to check out the books I've written. The Secrets of Manifesting and The Secrets of Manifesting Mastery just came out this year, and you'll find them on my website along with my courses, the Mega Manifestation Method. And I also have a course on Udemy called Metaphysics Made Easy. These are really good courses to get you centered, use some techniques to get yourself to that better version of yourself where there is no problem, only solutions. That's the way to go. Thank you and see you again soon.